when you have expectations of environment that also affects your psyche, so if your output, then you want to find places, environments that optimize anything that you're doing in life, be it eating,
Mhm.
be it working, be it living, right? So there's no difference here. If
Yeah.
if someone wants to make an argument as like, oh, we don't need co-working spaces, no, then you don't need a restaurant. Just cook at home. You don't need the gym. But that's not an argument, right? No, now like okay, so then okay, there's WeWork that grew and fell, and then there's a lot of co-working space that opens and closes. But I would argue that's also the same thing with majority of any businesses. People have this notion that, oh, I love to have a bar, you know,
Mm.
like we should open a bar, like guys, right?
Yeah.
Like I love to open a bar, and they have no F&B experience. They have no idea how to run businesses. They don't know how to manage their finances. They have money to throw at it because it's, I don't know, it's money that they saved up. They have a few friends to
Yeah.
have a pool of money, and they realize, oh shit, it's harder than I think it is,
Yeah.
you know? And it's the same thing with co-working spaces, co-living spaces, and all kinds of other businesses.
And welcome back to the Amagi Village podcast. I'm so excited to share with you today a conversation with my dear, dear friend, John Ho of Alt Chiang Mai Co-Living Co-Working Community. John and I met a couple of years ago when we were both on the precipice of launching our respective co-living co-working spaces in Chiang Mai ahead of a pandemic. So since we were fellows in the trenches in those days and learned a lot from each other, leaned on one another for support. Fortunately for John, his space survived, and not only, but has thrived, and they launched with community support their second location in Chiang Mai. John and I probably spend more time these days talking about our kids and planning picnics, but this was a really fun chance to pick his brain and hear about the business side of things, the numbers, and get the real operating smarts that he brings to his ventures. I've seen a lot of folks enter co-living who have more experience doing retreats, community building for digital nomads, or who may be more seasoned digital entrepreneurs or startup founders jumping into the brick and mortar space. And I think it's a very different skill set that's required here. For how much we all love and desire community and belonging, creating this while running a sustainable business is really an art. So without further ado, John Ho, founder of Alt and co-author of the recently launched Extended Stay Substack.
So, we're in the same city. You're back in Chiang Mai, but I wasn't sure because following your socials, you have been on the Nomad cruise and just bouncing around, right?
Yes, as usual.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
Nomad Cruise.
Yeah.
Man, I'm about to write an article about it in my newsletter. Just gonna throw it in already, but
Plug.
oh man, so many thoughts. It's a giant co-living plus a giant moving vehicle.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a transportation plus co-living space plus conference all mashed up together.
Yeah.
And I couldn't finish the whole thing because I have family and I need to be with my
Mhm.
kids and wife and work. But it was very intense in a good way. It was also during Chinese New Year. So we were also
Oh,
celebrating
yeah.
Chinese New Year with 3,000 other Chinese cruisers. There were 250
Mm.
of us. So it's interesting. We are in a bubble of a bigger space.
Oh, I
Um,
see. Okay. So you didn't have like the cruise exclusively. It
no,
wasn't just
no.
pure nomads. You were like
It's,
sharing a block. It was like a conference at a large like resort.
but we also have exclusive spaces for ourselves when it comes to workshops and speaking engagements and parties and dining areas and all that. So it also
Mm.
felt very exclusive.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the cruise is gigantic, right? I think one of the most unique experiences I have within the nomad spaces because, you know, you have Bansko Nomad Festival, which is a big
Mhm.
area. You have Colive Fukuoka, which is in Japan. And then there's also Chiang Mai Nomad Summit. So I've been through these circuits of gatherings, and Nomad Cruise is by far the most unique because of the nature of the space and also the
Yeah.
type of people. I think there's all walks of life, of course, but also you have people that are super established, and then you have people who are starting the journey, and you have
Yeah.
people who are trying to figure out what this nomad lifestyle is. But because you're cooked up in this whole cruise for 9 to 28 days, depending on which cruise you
Yeah.
join, uh, it's like an intensive course. And I love it. I love that 'cause
Um,
it's in a weird way.
at some point, I have to get Johannes on because like there's like several different like guests and businesses that I've profiled for the podcast, which have like related directly to like Nomad Cruise is like a critical point or like inception point. It's very interesting to me because you think about like how people set up like startup accelerators or incubators, and Nomad Cruise is not set up intentionally like, but just like the intensive experience and like the co-living aspect of it, like it can become its own little mini hackathon environment, even if that's not like the direct intent. Very interesting.
I mean, you can even create your own experience among the smaller groups
Mm,
of people that you vibe with more. So
yeah.
um, there's definitely different subgroups that I've noticed. Those who are more like party goers and they just have fun every single night.
Hmm.
Um, and then, I have a job. So then I also need like stable hours to work. And so you have people who want to have smaller working groups. And then you have founders and entrepreneurs and they want to talk about their businesses and their visions and their goals. So yeah, definitely have space to create those experiences within the no macros itself as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about the business of community. Mm, I so when co-working spaces were new to the scene, I think it's like one of many things that digital nomads kind of like pioneered or like expressed an early need for that is now much more commonplace as like remote work has gone more mainstream. I still think like Peter Levels did an article on this, I think like in like 2018 or something like that, basically talking about like what a terrible business model co-working is, just
Really?
like
That's why?
collecting membership fees. And it's just like, yeah, and to date, I still think of it as like the definitive like takedown that like renting a space, operating it for co-working and charging memberships is like not a very good way to make money. But I think as an industry, that space has matured. And I know that you have this hospitality, food and bev experience. And so even just entering this market, you were already bringing like had experience with like more tried and true business models to sort of enter co-working. And you started not just co-working, you launched co-living and co-working in Chiang Mai with your space at Alt. So yeah, talk to me about how you came to enter the market.
So my first co-working space experiences from Hong Kong because I
Hmm.
work in a startup company and we have a very small team, 3 people, founder and 2 staff. And it was already a thing. This is pre-COVID. And the brand name is called Hive. And they have
Hmm.
private offices and they have public spaces. You know the business model.
Yeah.
It wasn't selling community. It was more, if you have commercial spaces that people can book like a membership, then I think the business model is per square meters of rental yield. You can get a higher
Yeah.
because people can oversubscribe and they don't come every day and they don't have to block the space entirely for that
Hmm.
member. So the utilization, kind of angle makes sense. Um, Now I came to Chiang Mai 9 years ago. I'm still working for that company, but I picked
Hmm.
Fun Space in the old city. And then it's a co-working space, but the members, I guess, or the users are of a very different nature, right? So in Hong Kong, we have corporate, we have a more corporate vibe. Everyone is
Yeah.
just there to work. There's not so much socializing. I mean, they still have events, but in Pun Space, obviously, because it's in Chiang Mai, majority of the users are remote workers, digital nomads. So I think their type of work and their lifestyle of work or the rhythms of work are also slightly different. So, you
Yeah.
have people who are friendlier, they want to chat with you, they want to go have lunch with you. And then from time to time, they have small gatherings. And I don't know if it's a bad model. I mean, I need to know why is it a bad model, but I think for me, um, the problem of the business model in Chiang Mai is more because of the seasonality of
Mm.
things, right? So
Mhm.
let's say if you're in a city like Hong Kong where it's constantly just busy because there's so many
Yeah.
people coming in and out, and if you do correct branding and if you have a good product, I don't think that's an issue.
Yeah.
But in Chiang Mai, the problem is because the seasonality swing is so big. So you
Mm.
will have only 4 months in the year that it can be packed. And the remaining
Yeah.
8 months is like somewhere between what, 20% to 50%
Yeah.
utilization rate. And you still need to put staff there. You need to pay for utility bills and you still need to pay
Yeah.
rent unless you're Pun Space because they own the place themselves.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, that business model becomes a little bit harder to say, okay, can I scale this or can I really make this into a revenue stream that is worth the effort?
Yeah.
And that question is different from person to person. So for me, no, I don't want to just do a co-working space because I see, I see the use of it. I can see you
Yeah.
build communities of it. But then if I were to, I was thinking, okay, if I want to do one in Chiang Mai, first of all, how many co-working spaces do you need? And second of all, is there any value proposition that I can add on it other than just co-working spaces?
Yeah.
Right. So that, okay, I worked in hotels before. I understand a little bit about, lodging businesses and operations. So let's give it a try. Put bedrooms on top, co-working space at the bottom, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So I think, when I was running a space, like that article from Peter was like very top of mind. And in a place like Chiang Mai, where you have a lot of cafes and it's sort of accepted within the culture for people to open up their laptops in cafes, I think like Niman being like one of the heart of the nomad community, it's not like a coincidence that like that's also was like a spillover student community. A lot of the university students liked to go there. So cafes were pretty used to the idea of someone paying for a coffee, getting on their free Wi-Fi and like hanging out for a while. So once nomads started doing that with their laptops, it was like kind of an accepted user behavior. Whereas like I remember going to Croatia, hearing about it as like a digital nomad hub, and then just kind of just being like, people are smoking in here. Like this is called a cafe, but it seems like they're selling like more like beer and alcohol. And like I don't feel like I can like open up my laptop. Like this feels like a no-no. So the culture here was already established. And so you have less of a mode, right? Like how are you going to justify charging a membership versus someone just being able to like affordably go in and just like, yeah, buy coffee, buy food. And so introducing F&B is one of the ways to sort of, you know, get an additional revenue stream. So there's just like a couple of different aspects of it. So you've talked about like the seasonality. I think in certain spaces, there's going to be a challenge of like having enough of a moat to defend against like to be able to justify charging a membership versus like the alternative that is like cheap or free, which people can always work at home, right? And a lot of people still choose to do that. And then there's your geography. Are you in a city with like a corporate environment and high density and foot traffic, like Hong Kong, or are you in a place that's like seasonal hospitality? Maybe this is more niche, like Chiang Mai. So it's not like I think for all that it's a very popular idea and people love the idea of co-working, especially digital nomads who are drawn to them as like, I am seeking community. I am seeking my people. The first place I'm going to go to try to find those people, like if there's not a digital nomad meetup advertised, is a co-working space, right? But places are shutting down all the time. Like places come and go, and it's not easy. Even like WeWork, we sort of realized like the whole thing imploded because it was just like, you know, there was just like, it was heavily financially subsidized. So even though they were taking over the world and they made this whole thing popularized, and you would have thought the business model was fairly simple, right? This is a new way to utilize like commercial space, as you're kind of pointing out, um, with some better branding. Like they were clearly at some point like over leveraged. And I feel like I've also seen this happening in co-living, which you would think would be a little bit more of a sustainable revenue model because it's
Hey,
hospitality. Anyways,
yeah.
share your thoughts. I've been ranting a little bit.
So, I mean, the same comparison can apply to gym memberships.
Mhm.
Why do you need to do exercise in a place that you need to pay money for when you can go to the park,
Yeah.
where you can run, when you can just set up some things in your home and, you know,
Hmm.
because it's not good enough for some people,
Yeah.
it's not encouraging for certain people who wants to be in an environment that they want to get things done, right?
Hmm.
So co-working space versus cafe, it's like, oh, why do you need to go to a co-working space? You can just go to a cafe. It's completely different, right? And if
Yeah.
people don't understand that, that means they either don't see the value in it, so they're not potential clients anyway,
Hmm.
or they're not serious about their work,
Yeah.
you know?
Or they're broke, which
Yeah.
is
And it's fine. Like,
they're not your customer anyways.
I was bootstrapping as well. So, or I just couldn't find a good co-working space to be in. And now I'm forced to work in anywhere that I can just, sit down, even without a chair. But when you have expectations of environment that also affects your psyche in terms of your output, then you want to find places, environments that optimize anything that you're doing in life, be it eating,
Hmm.
be it working, be it living, right? So there's no difference here. If
Yeah.
if someone wants to make an argument as like, oh, we don't need co-working spaces, no, then you don't need a restaurant. Just cook at home. You don't need a gym.
Yeah.
Put it apart. That's not an argument, right? No, now like okay, so then okay, there's WeWork that grew and fell, and then there's a lot of co-working space that opens and closes. But I would argue that's also the same thing with majority of any businesses.
Hmm.
People have this notion that, oh, I love to have a bar, you know,
Mm.
like we should open a bar, like guys, right?
Yeah.
Like I love to open a bar, and they have no F&B experience. They have no idea how to run businesses. They don't know how to manage their finances. They have money to throw at it because it's, I don't know, it's money that they saved up. They have a few friends to
Yeah.
have a pool of money, and they realize, oh shit, it's harder than I think it is,
Yeah.
you know? And it's the same thing with co-working spaces, co-living spaces, and all kinds of other businesses. Sure, rent a space, put some chairs on, put the Wi-Fi on, hire a couple staff.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see how you can do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's like anything else in the world. Execution means everything, right? Do you know how to do branding? Can you train your staff well? You know,
Yeah.
what's your business model here? Like, are you pricing right? Um,
Hmm.
when you say this is a place for the community, are you actually talking to the community? Are you doing events for the community? Are you investing in community? Right? You want to provide a very comfortable environment. Are those chairs like comfortable? Right?
Yeah.
Uh, or people want healthy food. If that's your business model as well, are you giving people healthy food? Right?
Yeah.
So all of these are just like going into, do you know what kind of business you're doing and are you executing it well? And
Yeah.
I don't think it's a co-working conversation. I don't think it's a co-working business conversation. It's like, do you know what you're doing at the end of
Yeah.
the day when you're running a business of any kind?
Yeah. You probably have spoken to a more diverse set of operators than I have. Do you think people who are attracted to the business of co-working or co-living, are they coming from like tech digital entrepreneurship backgrounds, or do you think they have the operating backgrounds? Because for me, as like a techie who started to run like a brick and mortar, like rent, utilities, staff. Like it's a completely different ball game when you have to pay those bills every month, no matter what revenue you're generating, versus just having a couple SaaS subscriptions that enable your business.
I think this is what WeWork kind of gave people some false
Mm,
impression of, oh yeah, it's a tech business, it's a startup business.
mm-hmm,
Um, it's not a brick and mortar business,
mm-hmm.
but it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to know how to run a brick and mortar business. So when they sign lease, I mean, I'm watching that TV show, We Crashed, right? And I'm not saying it's factually correct, but when you're signing leases and don't understand your ROIs, right? Because you
Mm-hmm.
want to be in a prime location and this way everyone can see you as the top of the top
Yeah.
brand, then you're not doing your financials right, right? Or you can't justify it, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the funny thing is a lot of the co-living, co-working space owners that I talk to, I find that they have very little experience or they have no idea what it means by running a brick and mortar business. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know these would be the problem. And
Mm.
I'm like, well, I sort of told you about it, but you know, I guess nobody likes to listen to older people or non-tech people because I'm not tech.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
I tell people I'm not tech. I'm not that I don't know tech, but I don't identify as a startup person.
Mm.
Like in my title, I'd rather use business owner than
Yeah.
co-founder.
Yeah.
Sometimes I
Okay.
tell people I'm a founder.
Yeah, that's like a cultural
There
preference. I
is.
hear you. I hear
There
you.
is. So I think I come from a more traditional background because I worked in hospitality
Mhm.
jobs, right? And I don't hang out with startup people. So my mindset of thinking of this operation is purely like, okay, can I make my money back based on pure, like basic principles of
Yeah.
square feet utilization or square meters,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and membership yields and all that.
Yeah. I remember when I was opening Draper Startup House in Chiang Mai, just being given those spreadsheets to look at was just like very new for me. Coming as like a startup marketing person, I was like, oh, okay, like I have to think like this now. Whereas like you were very versed in that already. You already had that in mind when you decided to like launch your space. And so you launched Alt. You guys were renovating during the pandemic, and you came out the gate with a co-working space and a co-living space, and you already knew that you wanted community to be a big part of it, like right out the gate. So how did that project come together? How did you finance your first location? And how was that like, yeah, how was that reception?
Yeah. So the funny truth is, I never knew that I would be doing this when I look back, because when I had this idea and I was talking to people, I didn't have any professional pitch decks. Uh, it wasn't any proper like sit down presentations of
Yeah.
this is the vision, and these are the numbers, and I had none of those. I was just like casually talking to friends and be
Yeah.
like, yo, you know what? I think it would be a good idea to have a co-living space in Chiang Mai because there's nomads and then they don't have a place to live and then they're lonely. And I think community would kind of be, the solving solution for that problem. So when my friend, who I've known since primary school, you know, called me one day from Hong Kong and was like, yo, are you serious about this co-living co-working business? And then my reply was, I can be serious. Money for this. And so, yeah, so then, we started looking for spaces. I started crunching some numbers. I'm not even a finance person, by the way. And
Mhm.
so, even with budgeting, construction costs, um, like we were off, right? We were off
Yeah.
by a lot. And we had to course correct and, find more means to get
Yeah.
the money to finish.
Had you renovated a building like that before?
So luckily my wife, right, Sompor,
Yeah.
she's from here. And again, like if she's not Thai, if she's not from Chiang Mai, I would have never even thought of doing this, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
um, because we all know how complicated the Thai regulations and
Mm-hmm.
dealing with contractors and everything else is just,
Yeah.
impossible. Not impossible, but I wouldn't try it
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
So we built our houses in Chiang Mai. So
Mm.
renovated an old space that her parents owned as an Airbnb. So we have some experience, but even with that, right, this is by far the largest kind of scale we've done.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID came, which is a blessing in disguise because then we were rushing for a deadline to
Mm-hmm.
open. And then luckily we have good relationship with the landlord. So then she also gave us a grace, a longer grace period.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then by towards the end of COVID, when remote work became a trend
Mm-hmm.
of, and it was forced upon to millions and millions of people who never tried before. I think we were
Yeah.
also lucky because Thailand opened up and people saw us and they're like, hey, we need this.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
Yeah. So, what are your bookings like? Like, what's your like occupancy throughout different parts of the year?
But it's interesting because it's only been 5 years for Alt Chiang Mai, the first one, and then Alping River is only 2 years old. The data points are not consistent. So first
Mm.
2 years, we were very, very full.
Yeah. A bit of that revenge travel.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone was just like, I need to leave as soon as possible. And so I think the first 2 years were blessed because of that. And then the third, fourth year was interesting because um, I think Chiang Mai was hit by the smoky season news
Mm-hmm.
and also the scam operators on the border. Because we
Mm.
also are in Asia, so then we have anywhere between 20 to 40% of Chinese speaking clientele.
Mm-hmm.
So China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, or even most of the Asian countries are aware of the news, right?
Yeah.
Then on one hand, the Europeans, Americans are terrified of the smoky season
Yeah.
because it's blown way out of proportion. But of course, it is a health hazard when it's really bad. I'm not dismissing that. So then you have, March through May that it's completely dead if
Yeah.
we're doing anything related to the digital nomads. And then with the compounding effect of the scam operators and, people are saying, oh my God, there's people abducting you on the streets and throwing you into these
Oh,
like
yeah.
confinement places.
That gets very sensationalized in
Yeah.
a different media.
So
Yeah.
then, we had not a rough 2 years. So this is 2025 and 2024, but it was destabilized. Like we couldn't see like a trend other than the peak season. So October,
Mm.
February were always full, right? March, May, we're struggling, and we
Yeah.
struggled a lot last year. And then from June through October, we always have ways to kind of fill the rooms. So the occupancy will be
Mhm.
somewhere between 50 to 70%. But then again, like because we also opened a second location
Yeah.
since 2 years ago, so then like the demand was also a little bit spread out.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I think compared to hotel occupancies,
Mhm.
we're slightly better, like maybe 20% better on low months.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so we're okay. We're doing okay.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Because please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember like around the time that you were launching, I think you went to a retreat at a chateau co-living,
Mm,
right? And do I recall correctly that they're shutting down now?
yes, in August.
Yeah. So, you know, even sort of like the premier brand that like brought a lot of education and community building to like support the community builders, um, couldn't necessarily make it work. I'm curious like what you got out of that experience, what it's been like sort of educating yourself about the space and like getting to know the other operators and yeah.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because I wanted to see other co-living spaces before I opened Alt, but because
Hmm.
of COVID, I never got to see, I never got to go to Europe, and Europe has by far the most concentrated number of co-living spaces. So I was just like trying to figure it out on the internet and asking my friends about it.
Hmm.
But Chateau Co-living was a great experience.
Hmm.
I was a newbie. I
Hmm.
get to know so many co-living managers and operators. The castle itself is phenomenal. Like if
Yeah.
anyone who wants to experience a co-living place, a co-living experience in a castle, like it doesn't get more unique than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And their business is actually not the issue why they're closing down in August.
Okay.
So they're actually doing good in terms of financials. I think it's more
Hmm.
the founders decided to like not
Yeah.
be in the business anymore. So
Hmm.
Katia is the owner of the operations, and she decided to like just do something else. Also, there's a Sun and Co. I don't know if you remember. Also, a very famous co-living space. And they closed down about a year, 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So I think the reason for this is because number one, the co-living space experience is heavily dependent on the people or the person
Yeah. The
driving it,
hosts. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of
Yeah.
social battery, um, and just to really run a co-living space. And so if you move away from it, the question is there a system that you can put in place so that the business
Yeah.
can still run? And if you can, then okay, that's still good. But in Europe, at least my understanding is a lot of these co-living spaces are quite small. Average room size is 10 to 15. So
Hmm.
you can't really afford to pay high salary for very capable person to run the entire space.
Yeah.
And even if you can, it takes time to maintain the
Find
user
the right fit.
experience.
And yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the tricky part, right? When if you don't have a certain threshold of skill, then
Hmm.
it's tiring. Like I can tell
Yeah.
you, like I talk to as many residents and co-working members as possible on a day-to-day basis, and people
Hmm.
say, like, you're crazy, Like I have 6 to 8 meetings per day. Sometimes they're more serious ones and sometimes they're casual ones. But for me, those are all enjoyable and work, but a lot of just engagement with human beings. And so you really have to love your job to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
And I talk to, like tech people who like the idea of doing it. And after a year or two, they're like, you know what? I don't think this is actually something that I want to do.
It's intensive. Yeah.
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 I think there's strong messaging, especially within like the entrepreneurial startup digital nomad community. The idea that like if you love your work, you'll never work a day in your life. But actually, like if you love what you're doing, and especially if you're emotionally driven by it, and it's like a people thing, like it's actually really easy to burn out because it's so much harder to draw those boundaries, right? Like when it's people, like where is the line between personal and professional? It's like the much trickier thing to navigate.
It's almost impossible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of
Ask my
have to
wife.
accept, I think, to some extent. So, to what extent have you like operationalized like the community, the hosting aspect of it? Because you have to split your time between two spaces. You have a space at the edge of like Niman Old City, and then you have the other one like across town by the river. You live like in a whole nother part of town. So like unlike all the digital nomads, like you have to commute to work, you travel frequently. So like you aren't there all the time. Like how do you make that work? Because I think people at your spaces like still really rate the community experience.
So it's still a learning curve and we're not perfect, but I think the first line of defense is the operational staff, right?
Mm,
The Thai crew and literally understand how we're different from a hotel. I think
yeah.
that's important. So we put a lot of effort in explaining to them or training them. Okay, this is not a yes or yes, ma'am. Every time person comes in, you have to lie to them. Sort of customer experience, right? I have to reiterate what does community focus
Yeah.
operations mean. you know. So we emphasize a lot on just training and to the staff and setting up a system, basically understand, okay, these are the elements that are more of a higher priority than the other ones.
Hmm.
When anyone comes into the door and the things that you need to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a big help when the staff, when the first point of contact understands that we're a community business, then people can immediately feel it. And I'm not saying, we're doing it right every single time, but, we try a lot there.
You're aiming to set a standard. Yeah.
Right. And then the programming, right? So then like family meetings every Monday, afternoon tea breaks. For the residents, we have pizza and dumpling night on every other Friday. Activities, right? That people can actually congregate and, you enable them to
Yeah.
know each other, to talk to each other.
Yeah.
A lot of the small features that we have, has been thought through. We have a who's board just to show who's living here and working here.
Yeah, like photos of people
Exactly,
with their
right? So
faces and little notes,
yeah,
right?
so all the
Like a
elements
physical touch point, not
exactly,
like
and,
go
and
into our app to find this.
right. So then these are like non-technical, like non-tech
Yeah,
features
yeah.
that we have to put into our space because we understand that we're not a hotel. We have a
Mhm.
hotel license by law,
Yeah.
but I always explain to people, running a hotel is about prioritizing privacy of guests.
Mm.
Running
Yeah.
a co-living space is trying to facilitate relationships to be like built
Yeah.
between residents and members and even staff, right? For example, I don't stop our staff from dating members if they want to. No
Mm.
laws against it, right?
Uh-huh.
So these are all the kind of operating principles that we have. And of course, now that we have more experience, we also have community managers. So
Yeah.
community managers are actually not staff. They're also digital nomads. And
Okay.
we provide them with free lodging, but they also help out, a certain number of hours per
Yeah.
week. And they understand more about communications because their mother tongue is usually English, or they've been well traveled. They are
Right.
a nomad, so they can relate to them more.
Mm.
So there's like different layers of just protocols that we set in place
Yeah.
to make sure people understand, yes, we are walking the talk and we put the efforts in doing it and we make sure that
Yeah.
people know this.
So yeah, you've done a very good job, I think, educating yourself, paying attention. You're always talking to people. I think you're a likable, sociable guy. So you naturally have that, and you've like brought it into your business very well. And your second space, you crowdfunded. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, you
How
want
did how did that come about? Was that like, did you, yeah, was that a push pull? Like, was it just like you're just like bullshitting around the table and saying like
yeah.
we should have a second space, and then someone offered you a bucket of money to get started, or did you have expansion in mind?
So it was an interesting experience for sure. This is not even 2 years in,
Yeah.
was Chiang Mai, and we were teased at the idea that a Thai business person would like to like fund the growth of the brand. So we were having back and forth of discussions on how to do it, what would the partnership be like,
Hmm.
and then what would be my role and what this guy can provide. Long story short, the deal didn't go through,
Yeah.
but we were already like, okay, if we were to build a second one, where can it be? Right?
Right.
Bangkok,
The groundwork
Phuket,
was laid.
and then, we were just talking to people and we found this space by the side of the river, the Ping River.
Yeah.
Um, and it was an abandoned hotel. But because the deal didn't go through, then I was just doing the regular chats that I would normally
Hmm.
with the community. So, people ask me like, "Hey, how's it going? What's up?" And then I'm like, "Oh yeah, we were doing a JV deal that didn't go through. Now we're looking at this abandoned property, and we need 650,000 USD. So I don't know." And then people are like, "Well, how are you getting money? And I'm like, well, that was the way, but now that's not a way. So you tell me. Oops.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay. Crowdfunding. I was like, it's 650 now. They're like, well, okay, can we work it out, the numbers, and we can sort of help you out, figure
Mhm.
this out. So it was truly phenomenal because it was the community's idea.
Mm.
We have about 40 people on the cap table. Because Alping River is a separate entity
Okay.
that we created.
Makes
And
sense.
I want to say more than 20 of them are actually just people who lived here
Yeah.
or members here. And they just pitched in.
Yeah.
Like it took us 10 months to collect the money. And it was a lot of just interesting conversations with very sophisticated investors to people were just like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, wow, this is fun, but
Yeah.
also stressful because we were also signing the contract, putting down, the lease deposit, and then asking our contracts to start building. Yeah, so yeah, now we have Alpine River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me because like for people who've been to Chiang Mai or not, like your first location, like I said, like it's walkable to the Nimanhiman area, but it's like located just within the old city. So like two different like walkable zones, digital nomad hotspot, like tourist hotspots. So it makes sense like choosing there, but you guys being along the river is actually I feel like a little bit of a departure because I feel like once upon a time that was like highly touristic, and you guys are actually located behind the first church in Chiang Mai. So actually, as far as like the history of like expats, travelers like coming to Chiang Mai, like that's like where the original like Christian missionaries like set up and were given permission. So like the history of Farangs being in Chiang Mai is like you picked the center to sort of like drag in like the new generation of this story. To me, I kind of love the symbolism there. It's very interesting because it's like an iconic space, right? You can like walk from Alping River to like the Iron Bridge, for example. Um, yeah.
Interesting perspective. Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but
Mm,
yes, because back in the old days, the old city were only for Thais or local.
yeah.
So then all the Farangs, the foreigners, if they want to do any sort of business or missionary work, then they have to live outside of the old city. And I think the river was a cutoff point. So then you have the Sikh temples, the mosques, the Christian
Yeah.
church, and the Catholic churches.
Yeah. You had like the British and American consulates like just on the inside,
Yeah,
but like people couldn't live there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, fun fact, well, not we, but our landlord actually dug up a elephant skeleton
Whoa.
underground of all
On
people.
your property.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this is before we were there, but then
Mm,
he was telling us the story, and because it was also a lodging route, right? So then in the
yeah.
forests, in the deep forests of Thailand, the elephants would be the vehicles
Bring the
to,
teak.
yeah,
Yeah.
move the logs, and then they would push it into the river. But then, of course, these are domesticated elephants, so they have a lifespan, and they die, and they bury them, and they've been excavated. Like
Wow.
there's a lot of history in the space for sure.
Yeah.
I don't personally like to have my co-living spaces,
Mm-hmm.
places like Niman, because number
Mm-hmm.
one, it's already overpopulated. Um, and for the economic development of any spaces, like I don't see
Mm-hmm.
my value added proposition in that area if I were to build another
Yeah.
space. Not that I'm a mall or a condo or anything, but I just personally don't love Niman. Plus the plain noise, it's just very
Mm-hmm.
annoying. Uh, so yeah, when I found this abandoned hotel, and it's by the river, right, and it's pretty cute.
Yeah.
Every people that I bring into, even before we started construction, they're like, "Yeah, this is a nice
Yeah.
place," you
No,
know.
your first space was like very modern, but like you kept a lot of the traditional touches that are already like intact at like Alt Pig River. Very
Also, we
pretty.
like to just talk to the original building as much as we can, and just
Yeah.
upcycle if we can as well. So then yeah, like I don't think we have a very physical brand like impression for people. Um, but the space is very different and people like either one for different reasons.
Yeah. So you have been part of launching this initiative. You've sort of got the government's like blessing. We'll see what you can make of it with your local collaborators, right? To sort of turn Whatgate into like a digital nomad district. And like if people say like, Niman is the heart of the digital nomad like bubble, some people would say like, okay, Santitam is also like, another neighborhood where they're really packed in. But like again, Whatgate, that side of the river is not where people think. But um, tell me how you met Mickey and the story of your collaboration with the Anusan building and how this whole thing happened, right? Because so you can walk from your space down to this very interestingly like renovated like commercial space. It's like a whole complex, right? With like a big area that's parking lots that sometimes you've taken over for like festivals and things like that. But there's like interesting little like brunch places and a cafe and just like bespoke like cocktails and just like a bunch of like little bougie kind of like upmarket businesses that have entered an area that was still at the time like recovering from the pandemic, right? So it was very interesting to me to sort of like wander over there and just see like, oh wow, this is cool. I wouldn't have come to see this if I hadn't first heard about alt, but now it's like
Mm,
it's
yeah.
cool. It's like sort of connecting scenes.
Yeah. So, Kunmiki, right? Um, when we started Old Ping River, I really liked the whole neighborhood, and we
Yeah.
knew about Anusan Sabakoi as our neighbor. But because of 2 years ago, when I was a local host of a pop-up city,
Hmm. Edge
that's
City. Yeah.
that's called Edge City, I started exploring everything there has to offer within the area because we had to
Yeah.
host 700 people for a whole month. We had to arrange their lodging, their co-working space hub, which is Alping, events production, catering,
Yeah.
volunteering, government liaisons, just everything you know of
Yeah.
that people need. We were just helping them to do that. And so we had a couple events that we rented the space at Anusan for, I think, the closing party and also for some of the workshops because it was very spread out and we were just trying to find as many spaces as possible. And so I got to know about Mickey, and Mickey has an interesting story as well because, first of all, her last name is Animan Hemia.
Yeah.
And for people,
Old Chiang Mai family.
right. So for people who don't know, that's a very influential family from Chiang Mai because there's a big road that's named after them. Um, and she's fifth generation. And I think she was away of Chiang Mai for quite a number of years. She went to Japan for work, tried to do a business in Bangkok. She's half Filipino. And when we talked about, okay, we're neighbors, like, okay, what are we doing here? What is your vision? What is my vision? I think there's a lot of things that we really, really aligned because, you know, she was assigned by the family to run the whole space of Anusan Sabakoi, which
Mm.
used to be the first garage, used to be the first automobile garage of Chiang Mai.
Ah.
So that red car,
So that's why they had that big lot.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So that was the business. I don't know how many years ago is this, like 70 or 80 years ago, right? And then it was an abandoned space for many, many years because the family just didn't think about it much, and
Yeah.
most of the development was more near CMU, Chiang Mai University. So she came back a few years ago and she said, "Oh, okay, I need to develop this place." And she's very creative in a sense, and also very practical, right? So she tries to find tenants who are interesting, who doesn't compete with each other, and then she
Mm.
starts doing these monthly Sunday markets, walking street markets, and so and she would very friendly to invite us to be part of these events. So then
Yeah.
the relationship sort of developed over time as we have close proximity, and of course we want to support them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, the idea of nomad friendly district came about 8 months ago when I think the government understood that what it has been sort of forgotten You know,
Mm-hmm.
the businesses are old. The infrastructure is old, and the
Yeah.
people don't want to become the next Neiman because
Yeah.
there's also problems in Neiman area, that I don't know if nomads are aware of. As these the local communities look at Neiman and say, "Oh, we don't want to be like them." I think the main reason was also because of COVID, and you can see how Neiman was just decimated,
Yeah.
right? And at the businesses, and so Westgate locals are like, we don't care about tourism as much as they do. Um, so that we started thinking, okay, is there a path of development that can be more intentional and targeting a different type of people other than just the general tourism economy?
Yeah.
So then we have a small group, 3 of us, including Ataku, and we proposed to the Tasaba, the municipality of Chiang Mai, that we want to develop this into something called the nomad-friendly district. It's just a concept, by the way. Yes, we
Yeah.
have been blessed, but we're talking about infrastructure development. We're talking about programs and activities. We're talking about online platforms, information development, and I think the key message here is anything that we want to do, we want to have local participation. We want to have discussions with local people, so that they are part of the conversation and not
Yeah.
nomads or investors just imposing on the space and say, okay, these
Yeah.
are going to be the things that we're going to do. You don't have a choice
Right.
because we're just going to buy you out
Grassroots,
anyway.
not top down. Yeah.
We're like, yeah, there's at least
Meeting it.
conversation pathways happening, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm curious because, like, so there's government blessing, but as far as like policy, it's like in terms of like financial support, like something like you guys have to like drum up, right? But on that sort of like policy government side, I'm curious if you've been able to like observe the impacts of the DTV, the Destination Thailand visa, and how that affected like your business and your community after it was launched. Because like in my opinion, that's like the best digital nomad visa to date. Um, yeah,
Yeah. So DTV started when, like, 2 years ago?
yeah. I think we're coming up on a year and a half. Honestly, it's not even been that long. Like
I think it's more than 2 years.
more than 2 years, really?
Yeah,
Gosh, I don't
2024.
understand time anymore.
Yeah. Or me neither. But anyway, so when it launched, I think everyone was so excited about it, right? I mean, everyone meaning the nomad community.
Yeah,
Because there was also this friction of, depends on your passport. You can stay here for 30 days, 60 days, and then you have to do these border runs because you really want to stay longer and there's no path to do it.
yeah.
Um,
So
and
people would
so,
get like volunteer visas, they would
yeah,
do Muay Thai,
education
they would like
visas.
get like student visas to try to like make it work, but
And then you have
obviously it
shady
wasn't like
schools and
for purpose.
shady businesses that facilitate these demands. So I think the Ministry of Foreign Affairs actually did a good move to make it very
Hmm.
easy for nomads who wants to stay longer in Thailand to have this legitimacy of doing it. Now,
Yeah,
since then, obviously your friends and my friends and a lot of nomad friends are like, yeah, we need to get ETV. And so
yeah.
we don't have actual data in terms of how many people have applied for it because they don't tell us, government.
Unofficial.
Right. But they say it's about 10% of all visas that people are applying for.
Oh, really? Yeah,
I heard it from somewhere. The
yeah.
interesting thing is not everyone in the government loves DTV. And I understand why.
Mhm.
There's always exploitation of,
Sure.
there's always bad actors who's trying to take advantage of it and they don't have the eligibility and they're trying it anyway.
Yeah,
And I think you can't avoid it. You just have to find ways to enforce it and better,
yeah,
like, monitor the situation.
yeah. I think Thailand was smart though to look at the trade-offs and just being like, because a lot of people can still get tourist visas, or like they don't even have to get tourist visas. Their passports allow them like visa-free entry, right? And so there's a pathway, like bad actors are gonna act badly. So in a way, I think it was a bold move to basically regularize it. So at least there's not a negative selection bias of just like, because Thailand's policy was like good guys in, bad guys out, right? But then
Yeah.
you have these like digital nomads from like high trust societies who just want to follow the rules and are like scared of like doing the gray market thing. they're just like, well, I want to stay in Thailand, but I'm scared to do this because what if I get kicked out, even though they're probably not the people immigration are going to go after? And
Yeah.
so to actually like make a real pathway for them to just like declare themselves, like to me, that's the big benefit of digital nomad visas. And I think it's the conversations with governments, like you never quite know how it's going to go because these things are always messy. They're never straightforward. Everyone has like a slightly different local agenda. The left hand doesn't talk to the right, but I'm still so impressed by like how this was rolled out because all things considered, Thailand tends to be very conservative and very protectionist about these things, but they're the first ones to say like, okay, we don't care about like your minimum income requirement. They said we just want you to demonstrate proof of remote work and a minimum savings requirement, right?
Yep.
And then they also like capped it because they're like, okay, we don't want to deal with like the tax shenanigans. So like as long as you don't stay too many days, we're not even going to hassle you about that. We're going to limit it intentionally. So just I think a lot of pioneering moves. I'm still impressed. Like I'm so impressed that Thailand like managed to pull it off. No one else. I think no, but like no one else has received the same level of success for their like for the adoption of their visa. And I also haven't seen very many visas targeting digital nomads that actually like address their pain points, you know, being online, being flexible, all these things.
Yeah, and I think it's a great move just for the simple fact that you have an official classification of, okay, you don't call it digital nomad visa, you're calling it destination Thailand visa.
Yeah.
Everyone understands this is more or
Yeah.
less for the digital nomads, you know.
Mhm.
And so
Clearly targeted segment.
right.
Yeah.
So instead of having nomads that are trying to do education visa or volunteering visa or all kinds of weird ways, at least now you have proper statistics that you can count down
Yeah.
to be here, and you can have a framework and you can optimize and fine tune the other things that you can't, you know, to prevent the bad
Yeah.
actors from taking advantage of it. But
Mhm.
I think just the simple fact that, okay, let's just make a visa specifically for this, make it easier so that it's not like smart visa or the BOI stuff,
Mm.
right? That's great. Now, for us, for our business, it's of course good news because now people don't have to reluctantly leave because they can't stay as long as they want to in Chiang Mai or Thailand, any part of Thailand. So it's a net positive for sure, 100%. Is it going to keep it that way? That's interesting. I don't have the connections to ask the direct, you know, ministry to about these questions. But from time to time, if I have a chance to talk to them, I will just poke and see, you know, what they feel about the TTV. Yeah, but so far everyone's just like, yeah, let's just do this first and see what happens later. Yeah.
I think so. To me, it's very interesting to see how like remote work getting adopted. Like not everyone necessarily has to become a digital nomad, but I think digital nomads are trendsetters and it's like it's lifestyle, right? And so to me, it's very interesting the little leverage points that digital nomads identify and then like they exploit the gray areas. Some of these things regularize, they turn into policy or like part or products, right? A lot of it goes more mainstream. And so to me, it's just like an interesting like study in innovation and like social innovation, policy innovation, not just like pure tech innovation. It's like what are the second and third order effects of that tech? And so, you know, I think the like a whole new way of living is being unlocked. And you and I at one point collaborated on a potential co-housing project, right? We came up with this idea of Namjai Village. You had been speaking to some folks interested in like maybe creating like a retirement home community because of like your Hong Kong connection, sort of seeing that as like an addressable market. I was like a young mother, like a new mother, trying to seek community. So there's a couple of different us who came together to collaborate. Like um, for us, you know, that project, just because of, you know, it is that founder effect. We worked on it for like a year now, pretty solidly, like meeting to develop it. But I think we were all in different life circumstances. I think like for you, it was like Ed City was like taking over your life. So you had to like miss some things. And so we lost a little bit of steam. But like, I'm curious, you know, you've done co-working, you've done co-living. you know that people really need community. And I think that that's something that, like, as the world has been urbanized, as people feel a little less connection to their family or to their country, and they're sort of seeking a new way of like finding connection and meaning. Like, what do you think about this other, like, co-housing, intentional living communities, sort of like a, yeah, year-round, like more like long-term version, like co-living as a product?
So I think it's pretty obvious that industrialization, social media, internet, you know, we're in a different phase of life trend,
Yeah.
human behavior, and the the uptake of demand for community-based services, such as co-living or conferences like, these lifestyle conferences or pop-up villages,
Retreats, yeah,
retreats, and
pop-ups.
even co-housing, right?
Yeah.
It's just an effect of people who don't really enjoy their current status of life. It's so commoditized to a point that, like, they don't want to use the apps anymore.
Yeah.
Facebook is, I think Facebook should be done. Like, it should be
Like,
gone. Like,
yeah.
I'm curious to see what happens to Mark Zuckerberg with his lawsuit this time. But I can tell people are lonelier and lonely, right? Less and less people want to get married. Less and less people want to have kids, more and more people want to be in co-living spaces and talk about relationships.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? That means whatever that we've been trying to connect people are not working. Tinder is not working.
Yeah.
Facebook is not working. Like, gated communities are not working. Schools are not working. And I think there needs to be a certain number of like size. Like, okay, if you talk about businesses, what's interesting is it's always about efficiency.
Hmm.
It's always about scalability. And so you're always trying to optimize for profitability, but not for user experience,
Yeah.
right? User experience is an afterthought.
It's optimized only to the extent that it should improve profitability,
Right,
right?
because that's where the capitalistic system works,
This just,
right?
yeah, this is
Yeah.
business.
So it's business. And the people doesn't matter. As much as they say they do, they don't. As long as they're paying
Yeah.
subscriptions and they're not using it, that's fine,
Hmm.
right? So there's an exploitation of just human experiences in general, because it's justifiable as more people can make money off it.
Yeah.
And I think any type of community focused business, including co-housing, is trying to make a statement and say, okay, we're not building this for profitability first.
Mhm.
It needs to be profitable. I'm not saying it. I'm a business owner, right? So I know it has
Yeah.
to be profitable. And I also used to ask this question, like, what is the best size of a co-living space of alt that if I were to scale up, like, it cannot be more than a certain number. And I have a number in my mind, but because
Yeah.
once you scale up and once you start to industrialize this thing,
Hmm.
the user experience will naturally have to deteriorate in terms of
Yeah.
sense of community or sense of belonging, right? So I think people need to find that balance point of, okay, if there's two lines going, like profitability versus user experience, I don't know, like,
Mm.
it has to have a sweet spot, and that sweet spot is the most
Yeah.
important thing. So I think co-housing is hard, um, because co-living, or at least destination co-living, which we are under the category of alt, is more like a transient group of people.
Hmm.
And you have people who come in and they go out, and usually they stay between 2 weeks to 2 months. Co-housing is a longer term.
Yeah.
It's like building a village. And when you have people staying long terms, especially people from all walks of life, meaning they have different cultures, different ideologies, different backgrounds, different
Mm-hmm.
affordability and all that, it gets messy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so whoever that needs to manage that space and the people needs to have those skill sets to understand the complexity of human behavior and say, can I
Yeah.
manage these people?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because villages, when they were like, when you talk about old time,
Mm-hmm.
how people just, like were hunter gatherers and then they just formed
Mm-hmm.
a village. It was a
Yeah.
slower pace of development and everyone was kind of living in the same environment and they have the same
Mhm.
language and they have the same background and they have the same kind of
Yeah.
social status.
You also needed one another to like
Right.
survive, right?
So the villages were formed naturally. Whereas here, okay, maybe people come in have the same intention and maybe they have the same value systems, but still they
Mm-hmm.
can be very different in terms of ethnicity, in terms of religion, in terms of financial ability, capability, and all that. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
put these group of people into a co-housing project that works? I think that's the biggest challenge that I like when we were talking about Namjai, we already saw that effect, even just on the founders like level,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? And so if you want to do not even a lot, like just let's say 10 houses, 10 households,
Yeah.
that effect compounds, right? And so how do you identify the people who matches this project and say, yeah, I think we're all good to live together forever. We're talking
To make
multi-generational,
that
right?
long-term
Because you're buying
commitment.
the land, you're
Yeah.
building the house, you want to spend your life
Yeah.
and die there,
Yeah.
right?
You want to pass it on to your kids,
Yeah.
ideally.
So
Yeah.
it's like a marriage, but only in you're marrying with your neighbors,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
that's
And
not how we're used to looking at it, you know? It's just so funny to me that like if you are going to look an apartment or a house you're going to move into, like you kind of care who your neighbors are, but you don't like
you don't
you
care
don't
as
go
much.
interview them before you sign the lease, right? You sort of just end up dealing with it.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start doing this by design, suddenly you need this person to be your best friend. Like it's the thing that like in a you frame the question in another way and it's like an afterthought, but you frame the question in this way and suddenly it's not that you just have to like meet the bar here. It's that, like
Yeah.
yeah, the expectations just like go through the roof.
Yeah. So I think there are small pockets of communities that are trying to do co-housing projects. And, we've researched a whole bunch, right? And the sustainability is still questionable. We have
Yeah.
yet to find one project, one that we know has a good track record. Everyone is living happily together. I mean, there's always going to be
Yeah.
problems. Don't get me wrong, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's no perfect village. Even villagers will kill each other,
Oh yeah.
right? Well,
Anytime I go back to the village, like in rural Thailand, I'm sort of reminded like I there's so much that I can like romanticize, but like being the subject of gossip, like instantaneously when you show up, like it's a real like you sort of like, right. I'm living under a microscope. Everyone knows everybody. And it's like
and you have to be okay with it.
different sides of that.
You have
Yeah.
to be okay with
It's
that,
very different.
right?
Yeah.
Because then we're talking about communal living, you know, and our generation is not used to that, are not used
Yeah.
to that, right? So then, okay, are you okay to share the good times and the bad times with your neighbors,
Yeah.
right? Are you okay to show your dirty laundry to people? You
Yeah.
don't want fences,
Yeah.
you
People
know?
have fights
Right.
and children cry and
Yeah.
throw tantrums
Yeah.
and dogs are not always well trained
Or
and
are you even okay to adhere with the governance system of someone who set it up and say, yes, this is the higher authority that I will agree to,
yeah.
right? Because I'm telling you, democracy is not going to work.
No. Again, it's so funny just like what we accept as like normal and the base like in the basic background of like the templates of living of like you rent a house or an apartment, you can own it, uh, and like gated communities in Thailand, like the houses will be laid out like this, the streets will be like this. If you're not in a gated community, it's going to be a little more dense, a little less managed, but then you'll have like the local Thai, like historical, traditional elements to it. And like you already have like the rules and the form. And as soon as you try to go about like reinventing it, it's like the like, yeah, it becomes an invitation for people to like make this huge checklist. Like it must be perfect across all these things that they never would have even thought to consider because they basically just passively say yes to all these assumptions and all these like problems. Like, yeah, just de facto.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting to me, that dynamic.
But it's like every other project that people want to reinvent, you know? They are very clear about what they don't like,
Yeah.
about the current systems. What they don't know is what do they want and what can they use that is actually important in the new system
Yeah.
they want to build out, right?
Yeah.
And so I find talking to a lot of people who want to build their own thing, always in this constant loop of, yeah, the reason why I want to build this thing is because I don't like that thing. Okay, but you can also improve that thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to build a totally new thing because that's not necessarily easier or more sustainable,
Mhm.
you know? And then, but I guess this is what, you know, the current psyche of, you know, our generation or the younger generation, right? There's
Yeah.
always the rebellion, which is a beautiful thing, by the way. Like I was rebellious, right?
You want to, yeah, it's the drive to do something different. You have
Sure.
to even be able to like notice,
Yeah.
to feel allowed to do it differently.
The public villages were also very, you know, like case in point, right? What's that place in South Latin America right now? That they want to build their own little bubble in Argentina or something. Anyway, public villages in general, like
Yeah.
they just want to create their own bubble.
Yeah.
And there's no conversations with the local communities, local governance systems. They just want to be as remote, as isolated. Network school.
Yeah.
That's the point, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, you want to create your own governance. Sure. But that's not anything about unity or collaboration or anything with anyone else. Like
It's a parallel. Yeah.
you're basically making more fractions in the society.
Mm.
I don't know if it's a good thing or not.
So I want to hear your thoughts on like the architecture and design of like executing these things. But first I want to make an aside to your family. Because so you and your wife met and fell in love in Hong Kong. So you got used to life there together. And then you moved to Chiang Mai, where she's from, where her family is. And this is where you had your family. And you guys live next door to your in-laws or very close?
Oh, we
Are
were
they literally next door?
at the very beginning. We were living under the same household, and
Yeah.
now we have a plot of land, so we're living like 20 steps away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about the experience of like living with them versus like next door to them, like, or sort of like close to them. And I guess I'm interested to hear your perspective because, like, you know, you talked about designing co-living is not to maximize privacy, but to actually encourage, you know, connections, right? And in a family situation, that's different because obviously it's wonderful that you have like grandparents there who want to like help out, who are invested and like love your children. Um, but you know, there's a certain amount of friction being like the son-in-law, like literally under the same roof versus having a degree of privacy. I'm curious about your thoughts, like going into like, yeah, the co-housing context. Like, what do you think if we're trying to design for like the longer term life? Like, what do you think are some of the important elements that you would take from these different experiences?
So when I was in Hong Kong, I mean, spaces are very compact. I didn't have kids back then, so it was just me and
Yeah.
my wife, and we live in a
Mhm.
40 square meter condo apartment.
Yeah.
And that's fine because we still have our own privacy because I don't live with my parents anymore. In fact, a lot of Hong Kong people, after they marry, they're still living with their parents or in,
Oh, yeah.
and it's a high stress environment that I do not want to imagine myself to be in.
Houses or apartments?
Just
Which are more
apartments.
common there?
You don't have
Apartments?
houses in Hong Kong. You have to
Yeah, I was
believe
like,
yours.
"Ugh."
Yeah. But here, even with a house that was that we were living on the first 2 years of our life in the old city, I could feel, the lack of privacy, right? Because we were literally living next door to my in-laws, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and so that was a big shift of me having my lifestyle and then
Mhm.
now being in a very Thai way of living. So moving out of town, okay, it's 30 minutes away, but at least we have a larger plot of land that we have our own houses. Physically, that separation helps,
Yeah.
because we have larger spaces and we have our own private space. Now, the connecting point or the separation is interesting now because, okay, if you look at gated communities, right, every single house will have their own walls and
Yeah.
doorways. And so clearly, explicitly, what are the boundaries of
Yeah.
private
Everyone has
property?
a fence, a wall
Yes,
around their yard.
of private property versus public property versus your neighbor's property space. Right?
Hmm.
So in the compound that I'm living right now, we have 3 buildings. One which is my family. 10 meters away is my in-laws family and our in-law, grand-in-law. And then there's another house there's another building that's also like 15 meters away. That's my brother-in-law. And we have pathways and we have a garden in the middle, but we don't have fences, obviously. And that works for that family unit of 8
Yeah.
people, 8 family members,
Yeah.
right? 9 family members. Now, I think if you do want a co-housing project, you still need boundaries.
Hmm.
The boundaries should not be fences because then it's like a gated community.
Yeah.
But if it's not fences, then how do you do the boundaries? And how much is good boundary? And how do you enforce these boundaries by saying, this is my space, this is your space, right? And so I think there's a lot to talk about in spatial design, which I don't think there's a lot of information about these things.
Hmm.
I think there are
Not
people,
in a modern context,
yeah,
I
I think
feel
there are
like.
people studying it, but
Yeah.
I haven't done enough research to know what is the optimal way to do things. But boundaries are important.
Hmm.
Um, but you don't want to be too obtrusive, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not doing a co-housing project.
Yeah. I remember when we had one of our Namjai planning meetings, you took us to Calm Village, in the heart of Chiang Mai, just like a beautifully renovated, like a developed property. And it was on like about 2 rai, right? God, I don't even know what that is in acres. I'm sorry. Like maybe I'll put it in the show notes. Um, but 2 rai of property and like very dense, right? Like 3-story buildings. But it was very interesting how they sort of stacked, put walkways, used courtyards to create a little bit of separation. So they're very clear zones, and I think it's like they were inspired by, I think, like traditional like Thai Chinese family compounds. And it's like feng shui, right? You have to have a good entrance.
Yep.
And that was very interesting to me. I remember like you had that unique insight of just like, okay, we want to try to like maximize like occupancy or be able to maximize occupancy per square meter, right? Because that's just like a cost thing. How do we use design solutions to solve for this? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, Calm is a really, really interesting project. Every time I go in, I'm like, whoever designed this is a genius. Like,
God, don't
okay,
you just wish you had their money to just like throw
of
at all the
course,
beautiful things?
materials they use and the craftsmanship, right? It's top notch. But there are concepts in it that anyone can actually just take a page from it and build something similar and get
Yeah.
to be like 20%, 30%, 50% cheaper. The idea of, like co-housing is that, okay, someone needs to make a decision on what the building looks like.
Hmm.
You can't have 10 people voting on it. Nobody's
Yeah.
come
How
up.
was it just building like your family compound? What was that design process like?
Well, we have to compromise, right? So, okay, the only thing that I need to adhere was the roof. The roof needs to be the same color and the same design. Okay, fine, I can do that. But other than the roof, the building itself, the materials, the spatial design, everything was different from my in-laws being super Lana style to ours
Hmm.
being very much just Western house, right? Um, but the exterior still has a consistency, so people don't
Yeah.
feel like, oh my god, this is like two very different things forced to be put together. So you need to have a kind of like a, cen- a centralized decision making processes, right? So that everything makes sense when you build
Mm-hmm.
out the thing. And Calm being Calm, I think they are a company itself, and so there's no one else that will tell them what else to do.
Yeah.
And it's not also a residential area. It's more like a I don't know what you call it, Calm. I can never tell. What would you call it?
It's definitely like because they have some residences, I think, like used by the owners, right, on the very top floors, or
Yeah.
I think maybe they like rent that out to some people. I haven't seen it listed, but I would call it like, yeah, it's a template for like a mixed use development, right? Because there's like a cafe in there, there's kind of like a museum, they do events
Shops.
there, there's shops.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no one's living there, I think, full time permanently, but you could totally like, they had the upstairs spaces where someone totally could be living there, and enjoying that if they wanted to as like a private residence.
Yeah,
They could totally be, I think, maxing out like as hospitality, a hospitality operation as well.
for sure. Like I think it's I can imagine a co-housing project, a co-living project in that place. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Which is very different from, so one of the conversations we had too was like, well, what about acquiring a resort property and transforming that? Which I had opinions, I think, largely leaning on the downsides of that, even if I think there would seem like some cost benefit to that. Think for me personally, like to your insight, hotels are designed to maximize for privacy, and just like the in Thailand, like the standard like resort bungalow, like is not functional for a family, right?
Yeah,
A lot of these places are designed like it would not be safe for a family. You want visibility for your children, not like ponds and landscaping and like all of this like separation. Like it
and
would be expensive to like add kitchens to every bungalow and a second bedroom to every bungalow. At a certain point, you're better off just like building from scratch. That was always my take, but I'm curious about yours.
I mean, we adopted two buildings for our co-living
Hmm.
spaces, but we spent a lot of money in modification, renovation. So, like cost wise, are we saving money than building it
Hmm.
from scratch? Maybe a little bit, but we definitely need to spend more effort in like just adopting it, right?
Yeah.
And it's a challenge that I'm willing to take because I just enjoy the process of like
Hmm.
changing things.
Yeah.
Um, but is it as cost effective or um maybe a little bit? I don't know. Like if you take everything into consideration, what's better? From scratch or just adopting some pre-existing, properties? I think there's pros and cons at the end of the day. Um, yeah. Mm. I think construction cost is still cheap in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So I think you will have more freedom to actually do it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shifting the conversation in a slightly different direction, because you talked about so many people are lonely. There's such a strong like desire for community because like, you know, we haven't exactly designed our modern societies and our markets to optimize for like people feeling cared for and having good relationships, right? Now we're kind of like reacting and dealing with that. And I think folks have tried to figure that out on the product side, and that's like why Tinder exists, like, right? But it's not, that's why Facebook was supposed to exist, but these things like they take on a life of their own because the incentives just are what they are. I feel like we're in a place where the conversation about like fertility is becoming much more prominent. And like Thailand has like an aging society, right? And compare even uh to even worse than places like Japan, where it's like been a known issue. I think it's more, maybe a little bit more in the public sort of awareness, but
Yeah.
Thailand has nowhere near
Is
the
it
level of
1.2?
like,
What is Thailand right now?
I don't, I think I'm not sure that the fertility rates are that many points away, but Thailand just has a larger share. If you look at the demographic segment, just Thailand has just more old people than young people to deal with.
It's also
So that's
one of
like
the
a ticking
lowest
time bomb.
fertility rate in Southeast Asia.
Yes. And like, so I think folks are now looking at that, like the aging population crisis, the fertility rate, and governments are like, again, governments don't always function how you like would want them to function, but there's some like attention being like given to this. Like, actually, okay, I've sort of wandered away a little bit. Sometimes I do this with my questions because I actually want to talk to you about like AI. So where am I going with this? So your children, right? Like, so they're inheriting a certain society. You have, I think, a lovely family compound. So like you're, I think your likely scenario, like where the default is probably like, okay, like if you want to age in place and like maybe your children, like at least one of them like stays and lives with you long term, that's like a path that's like open, but there's no guarantees, right? Where's the world changing? I'm curious, like, if there are things that you want to implement for your own family, just in terms of like shaping the outcome for your family, and if you have lots of thoughts about like society wide, like, because like you want like, I imagine you want grandchildren, like, you're like, grew up, raised Catholic, like like that desire for like large family, is like certainly there, right? So yeah, just in the personal or in like, I want both the personal sphere and the public sphere, but like whichever way you like want to answer that. I'm curious about your thoughts. Like, how do we have more grandbabies personally? How do we have more babies across like Thai society or elsewhere?
Well, then people will start wondering, is it necessary to have more babies? I thought we have too many human beings already destroying the planet, right?
No, that's like, I just categorically reject that narrative. We have a fertility crisis and we have had it for a long time.
Okay.
Everyone needs to go read Steven Pinker's Enlightenment Now and just
Right.
like get rid of their doomerism. We have problems, but society, okay.
Sure. Yeah. And I agree with you, right? Like we
Yeah.
need more people. We don't, it's not that we have too many people. We don't have
Yeah.
enough people, especially young people, especially babies, right? And so now not every country, sorry, a lot of the countries are having existential crisis literally because of
Yeah.
population decrease. And South Korea is what, 0.8, 0.8?
Yeah.
The population balance is 2.0, right? So then their population is decreasing like every single year. And then I think the projection is in 20 years, the population is going to go in half.
Yeah.
Japan is slightly better because they've already done a lot of like incentives and policy changes to encourage people to have babies, but they're still super slow. Like we talked about Thailand, right? I think it's 1.2 or 1.3. Don't quote me, but I think we're not good.
That sounds
at
like
all.
the right kind of range.
Yeah, and also like our cost of living and also our economy is not Japan, not Korea. So we should not be 1.3, 1.2. I think we should be at least.
We can't afford it. We
No,
can
we
afford
can't.
it even less than they can.
Can't. But Thailand is interesting because there's a lot of immigrants, right? And so I think the reason why Thailand, as a government policy perspective, is not so worried about this is because everyone loves Thailand and they want to move here. And so they're like, okay, well, we're not having enough babies, but I guess other people can bring their babies to Thailand.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing here. So you don't hear the government ringing bells and having sirens and say, okay, we need to subsidize you guys. We need to give you more benefits, and all that. Now, with me and my family, I've tried my best. And I think the ultimate bargain was 2.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with 2. And I don't know if I'm going to love 3 or 4 or 5, but that is the reality, right?
Yeah.
And then with my kids, they're 7 and 5 right now. And I don't know what they think about the life because I want to believe there's very little control of me as a parent and shaping their ideologies as much as I want to. And I want to have a good relationship with them. And I want to tell them, hey, it's fun to have a family. It's challenging, but it's fun and it's very fulfilling. And consider having babies.
Yeah.
When they grow older. I don't know if these are explicit communications that I
Mm-hmm.
need to do with my kids, but I definitely want to try my best to show them that it's actually happier. I'm not saying everyone will be happy, but it's happier to have kids, especially when you're older, that
Yeah.
you can depend on.
Hmm.
And it's happier to live with your
Yeah.
family because you don't feel as lonely,
Yeah.
right?
And
I
they'll
think,
have the benefit of that lived
right,
experience. Like they see their grandparents every day, they
right.
see that relationship.
And I think, we're serving a purpose by having co-living spaces or you wanting to build your co-housing project, but still having your family members are different from having really cool neighbors or
Mhm.
community members, right? I think it's just very different. You can't argue that. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone can, right? And so but that's my opinion. And I don't think
Mhm.
that could be I don't think my kids will agree or disagree in the future.
Yeah.
So the only thing we can do is okay, let's try to make families are as harmonious as possible, that is as healthy as possible, that is contributing to the community as much as possible, right? That's the only
Hmm.
thing we can do. Um, but again, there's also people building co-living spaces or co-housing projects for singles. So, and then now people are promoting these ideas of, polygamy is actually better, or, open relationships are great and all that. And I respect people's choice of lifestyle, but I personally don't do that. And
Yeah.
I like the current state of my
The
relationship.
traditional setup is working very well
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
the hoes and in-laws.
I, funny conversation I had with a nomad cruiser on
Yeah.
last week. A French young person, young, but he's in his early 30s, and he's like, "I'm never going to sign a piece of paper with someone." And then I'm trying to understand what is his, understanding of it. And he comes from a very conservative Catholic family.
Mm.
And turns out, I think, I have to guess because he didn't explain clearly, but he had not so good of an experience in a, conservative family. But maybe he's
Yeah.
still young and he's still trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
But when I told him about my experience, also from a conservative Catholic family, and my current situation, I know I'm not, I don't believe, I know I'm in a very content environment with my wife, with my
Mhm.
kids, my business in Chiang Mai. And he said, "You're lucky. You're one of the very few people who actually has this kind of relationship." I'm like, "Well, but I'm not impossible. This is not an impossible
Yeah.
case. This is something that exists outside. It's maybe not within the nomad community and not within the people that he hangs out with, right?" So I
Yeah.
guess we just have to kind of be more openly about these ideas or lifestyles that we're, trying to do.
Yeah. Well, because I think you guys have found for yourself a sweet spot between the modern, international, global, as well as like the traditional and very local, right? Like you and your wife would not even have met if she hadn't like moved to Hong Kong for like her studies and her work, right? And so, and that's like, that would not have happened in like a rigorously conservative traditional context, like the young woman of the family, like moving abroad to be educated, to like enter the workforce. I think like, I guess I wouldn't presume to give an imprint, but I do just feel like the answer lies in, yeah, I think that sweet spot, as you've spoken about in another context, is like, what are the new, novel, innovative, like global, international, internet aligned, like ways of doing things that give you options, that give you those points of leverage, that give you access to those life hacks like digital nomads do. But also, like, what are the bits of like the local and the conservative and the traditional that, like actually can work that we don't need to just like be rebelling against. Like there are certain things to optimize, but you don't necessarily have to like reinvent everything wholesale, right? Like a lot of the heavy lifting, like traditionalism may have its downsides, but like it's a pathway of like knowledge and wisdom, right? It's like those traditions exist for a reason.
Yeah. And so you asked me about AI as well previously, and
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable. You know, the society will move forward the way how technology will facilitate, you know, advancement. And so I'm not saying no AI, and some people would say no internet. We want to go back to their, like traditional ways of living, cut off everything so that, you have your traditional values set. I think that's very hard. That's very, very
Mm-hmm.
hard. And even if you can do it individually, I think it's not a great idea to impose on your kids to do that, right? Because you're taking away their choice. Um, so then, like you said, I met my wife because she is modern and she studied overseas and she moved to Hong Kong, right? And I decided to come back here because I am from a very modern society, but there's not enough of space or flexibility for me to see a happy family with kids
Mm.
in Hong Kong. So I moved to Chiang Mai because it's less developed, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think like anything that I have a philosophy in life, it's not anti any movement,
Yeah.
and it's not just all in into a very radical idea. I think it's just like you got to find a balance on all these things happening in life and say, okay, there's good things here, and there's also good things here, and then you just make it work, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, my business, right? I would say my business is pretty AI proof,
Mm.
right? So then the people who comes here are not looking for how AI enabled
Yeah.
alt is, right? The reason why people come here is because there's humans and they want to
Yeah.
hang out with humans.
Yeah.
So then I think this is always going to be a need as technology advances. So I want to do more human nature stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a certain
Yeah.
segment of traveler that wants like a hotel with just like where you don't have to talk to a person, right? You show up, you use a screen to check in, and besides, like maybe someone like being able to call someone from maintenance, like that's what they want, maximum privacy. But your product is for a customer on like the other end of the range. Like you want the people, people want the people.
I don't even know if people actually want zero human interaction in the hospitality environment. I think it's more
Mm.
the businesses trying to impose that in users because it's they can make more money out of it, right? Of course, there's inefficiencies, but
Mhm.
again, like we're not radicalizing any side of how you need to implement things. You just need
Yeah,
to find a good balance of things. We're using technology, we have
yeah,
automations and all that, but at the end of the day, I think human beings are wired to be social,
absolutely.
right? You can be an
Yeah,
introvert. We have more introverts than extroverts in co-living. One would wonder why, if they don't like socializing. No, they actually crave for socializing. They just feel uneasy to do it.
yeah.
And that's why they choose a co-living space because they don't have to
Mhm.
try as hard, And so I think, yeah, technology has a weird way of thinking what humans should do things. And I don't necessarily agree that they're thinking it the right way. Not
Yeah.
everyone is thinking it the right way.
Yeah, I think it's interesting people talk about this like K-shaped economy possibly emerging. Like some people are very doomer about it. It's like, oh, now is the time to escape the permanent underclass. Like you're going to be part of like the AI-enabled elite who are creating society, or you're going to be like, doom scrolling TikTok and all the products that are being like force-fed down to you. Like I think that's an interesting way of like looking at the potential problem. But again, I don't, maybe because I am a mother and like I have children, I'm just like, I just, I'm biased towards optimism. So it's like, so I sort of see that. And I think like, actually, like, no, if we look at technological adoption, we're just constantly creating new categories. Like there's a new platform and then there's like cycles of like aggregation and disaggregation where people find efficiencies and then the system gets tested. And so it's kind of to the point we're making this, like, I think there's a whole spectrum of like hotels and hospitality experiences of like that you can like dial the budget up and down, you can dial design up and down, you can like dial the human touch up and down. And so you just get like a much more diversified market that like serves many, many more niches. And I think we're much more likely to be moving in like that direction, which is why I think with this problem of like how do you launch like an intentional community, how do you create like a co-housing project? It's just something that doesn't quite exist in the market yet, but it feels like given all the potential dials, like it ought to exist. I just think there's like more room for, yeah, these differentiators, more room for like different types of customers coming.
I agree. Co-housing, co-living, community first kind of environment ought to exist. But I
Hmm.
think one step before that, it's also people start to have conversations about things that we're talking about, you know, relationships,
Yeah.
just like human beings talking to human beings for trying to date, trying to make friends, trying to build a business
Hmm.
relationship, right? Like, okay, talk about solopreneurs. I want to encourage people to become solopreneurs. But
Yeah.
the reality is there's only a very small subset of people that can actually do everything by themselves. By and
Hmm.
large, most people still need to depend on other people with different skill sets,
Yep.
right? But people don't talk about it as
Yeah.
much as I think they should. They talk about AI, great, right? They talk about speed dating,
Hmm.
so everything is just very much on trend because that's where people. I think those are the messages, like like people
Yeah.
want to get
We're all kind of just like trying to process all this new stuff,
right.
right?
But I mean, again, like my way of connecting with people is whenever I have an opportunity to sit with someone here, or go on to a nomad cruise or be on a nomad summit or something, or even have a presentation on things, right? Community,
Yeah.
I talk about it all the day long. I think I try to give them a different perspective on how we can understand any topic, right? So then, okay, maybe they already have a default, operating systems, but then
Hmm.
we talk about these things and they might change their mind, right? And we don't know when. Maybe it's not in their 20s, maybe it's not in their 30s, maybe it's in their like 40s or 50s, who knows, right? But I think this like equilibrium of whenever one side is too tilted, then
Hmm.
naturally there will be forces that will kind of counter it and balance it, and hopefully neither side goes too wacky, you know uh that's my hope.
Valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, this has been like a super fun conversation. Like, honestly, you've been like a delight to interview. Because I just like you as a person. I'm so glad you're my friend. And I also just really appreciate just like I think the operational savvy. Like, that's like clearly it's like your differentiator in the market. And I think that's something that, yeah, a lot of people who are very aspirational, like that aspiration is so beautiful and you want to like cherish it and nurture it and protect it like a child. But it's also something that like if you like idea meets like reality is tough and you need people who like are willing to have those tough conversations with you to be able to like share those hard-earned insights to give you the raw reality. And like I just feel like, yeah, I've gotten a lot from this conversation today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love to crush people's dreams, right? But I mean, sometimes, yeah, there's reality that you need to understand, and you need to navigate, because otherwise when you hit the wall it's going to hurt real bad,
Yeah.
and if it's other people's money, great, you can also ask it, but I use my life savings. Everything is like, if I fail, it's going to be painful. So
Yeah.
you naturally you think twice before doing things.
Yeah. No, I think you have strong dad energy, John. It's just like, and it's like I think it's like the healthiest, like most loving thing because it's like, if you are going to have your dreams crushed by anybody, it's like, would you rather have it crushed by like faceless reality, the bank saying that like, screw you, this like, you
Right.
have to pay this and Otherwise, like, you're not going to make it. Or do you want, like, hi, I'm smiling, I care about you, and like, I will help you if you choose to engage in this struggle. But I'm not going to like hold back the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
anybody would choose you.
Need to start charging now. Being a business person. Just kidding. No. Yeah. There'll always be a free service, I suppose.
Ah, well, sign up to your newsletter.
Yes, please. Experience. Right.
No, good. Thank you so much for making the time for this, John. And yeah, hopefully I'll be seeing you around soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I'm your host, Lily Zabo, and this has been the Amagi Village podcast. Amagi is the ancient Sumerian word for return to mother. It's also the earliest denotation of emancipation and freedom. Not freedom through escape, but through return, through restoration, integration, through rebirth. The world is quickly changing, and the myth of modernity is coming undone. Progress is not linear, and to thrive in the coming age, we can't keep living in the matrix and just hoping for the best. It's time to embark on bold experiments. We don't claim to know what the answer is, but we know it won't come from ideology. This isn't a cult, it's not a brand. Amagi is an invitation for those who don't just play with new ideas, but are ready to live them, to walk the talk, to build the future. The Amagi Village podcast documents our journey of discovery. We're learning in public from technologists and tribal elders, from philosophers and farmers. Let's reimagine the future together. Please visit amagi.life to learn more. That's amagi.life.